Howdy, folks. I'm Caleb, and welcome to Influ-Men-Sirs, the podcast where we explore influential men and their influence on men and the broader conversation around masculinity as a whole. Today, I will be discussing Scott Mescudi, better known as Kid Cudi, the well-known and well-beloved hip-hop artist. Furthermore, as you can tell, I'm writing this one solo, if not solo dolo. Oof. Cringe references aside, I thought I'd start by giving a brief rundown on who Cudi is before I launch into answering questions about the fellow that we tend to ask on this pod. So, Scott Ramon Seguro Mescudi, also known by the stage name Kid Cudi, is a rapper, singer, songwriter, producer, actor, and fashion designer, all the things. Born and raised in Cleveland, Cudi moved to New York City and pursued a musical career when he first gained recognition for his song Day and Night. Initially self-published on MySpace, the song became a hit online and served as a catalyst for Cudi to team up with record producers Plain Pat and Emil Haney to record his first full-length project, a mixtape titled A Kid Named Cudi. Its release helped Cudi rise to prominence and establish a fan base, catching the attention of another guy we'll review in the future, Kanye West, who signed Cudi to his Good Music label by late 2008. So Cudi has been recognized as an influence on contemporary hip-hop and alternative music. His lyrics are often autobiographical, describing childhood experiences of depression, loneliness, and alienation, his struggle with drugs in adulthood, and themes of spirituality, heartbreak, dissipation, and celebration. Much of his impact stems from his ability to display vulnerability and address mental health. Oof, I will speak on that quite a bit. He is noted for his experimental nature, combining psychedelia, R&B, electronica, synth pop, dance, house, punk, and indie rock into his music. He's sold over 22 million units domestically and won 2 Grammys. And then they gave me a list here of a bunch of different artists that he's worked for. Worked with. And I, in some ways, don't even need to bother. You guys already know he collaborates with so many people, probably most famously Kanye, of course. But yeah. So kind of like we've done before. So this one is, as I jokingly said, kind of cringefully. I don't know if that's a word. As I was saying before, this one I'm writing solo. So I'm going to go through the questions like I normally would, but obviously this will probably be a bit shorter than others because no one else to talk with me, which again, when we'll talk about him more and more, you'll see how relevant it is in a way that I review him by myself. So what do I think? My, oh my. One of Cudi's number one stands, like the standest stand to ever stand incoming. He's my favorite, and it's not even close. I think that there is as I'll talk about and answer more as these questions, you'll see more and more, but there's a kindredness that I feel with Kid Cudi, that a lot of which I think stems from us having similar personalities. He's a very sensitive, empathetic, deeply feeling kind of person. Likewise, boy is too. And I think that he kind of demonstrates exactly how there can be different forms or variations of what it looks like to be a masculine man and even a healthy man, but how it's going to look a lot different than normal forms and even other guys that we've reviewed on this pod. So, but overall, mostly positive things to say about him. His fans say, and I agree with them, being one of the fans, that he's like a friend. So this comes through not just in his music, but a lot of times in his interviews. You can really, really tell that he is speaking from precisely his heart and not a place else, which I really, really love. I'm thinking of a song that you can see on my vinyl of Man on the Moon 2. He has this line where he basically says, like, the lyrics on the song is exactly who I am and how I am. Like when I'm writing these songs and I'm wanting to be lyrical and poetical and whatever it may be, I also am just out and about in the world and having conversations with people. And this is the way that I communicate. And I remember, goodness gracious, when I was that age, when it first came out and I was first listening to it, which I'll get to this portion a little bit more later, but I just really, really deeply connected with that a lot. Um, yeah. And I mean, I think that as far as he stands out in the hip hop industry, documentary, it's a little on the corny side, but I love it because I'm a Cudi stan. But it was all about him and kind of just talking about how he brought on in emotionality and sensitivity that, to be fair, the other guy that again we will probably review in a bit, Kanye, was already starting to do, was kind of trying to make hip hop as a genre, at least in a popular media forms, more sensitive, more inward focused, more just kind of open to sadness and negative emotion that perhaps wasn't just anger or rage. And again, I say just as in what the media was promoting, right? What pop culture was kind of promoting for hip hop to be. It has historically been. Goodness gracious, so many different things. But I think what Kid Cudi took, he kind of took the torch from Kanye, or you could kind of argue maybe Kid Cudi made Kanye, a bit more emo, quote unquote, a bit more sad or introspective. But he took that and he just made it entire CDs, entire albums, entire artist himself. That is very much just in this lane of emotional expression, um, coming really truly as you actually are. Many musicians do this. This is just the flavor of the month, or the one that I really, really latched onto when I was younger. But yeah, I just think he does this remarkably, remarkably well. So, next question here is, what is he saying about masculinity? So, I think first thing that comes to mind is a song from, uh, it's literally called Man on the Moon, and he has several CDs that um, are numerically Man on the Moon 1, 2, and 3. So, it's on Man on the Moon 1, and it was literally called Man on the Moon. This is how I done it. But anyway, he kind of talks about I never gave a fuck. I never gave an F about what people thought about me. I mean, I did, but like, screw that. There's just something about that opening that I think I really appreciated, because I think most men, and I can't say all, and in some ways I'm sort of generalizing here, but I think most guys want to have an aura or a presentation, or, when they're amongst their peers, they want to come across as if they don't care, as if they're cool, as if they're kind of alpha. We talk about this a lot in other podcasts, but um, I think that what Kid Cudi did a really good job of showing is that no, we really do care. As men, we really, really do care. We really do want to come across a kind of way, and we do feel kind of disappointed or sad or full of shame, even if we don't necessarily carry things in that way. And that song kind of illuminates this, kind of talks about unrequited love, which was a big theme for me when I was younger. This is another part that I really, really connected with and identified with. But yeah, and then I think the other thing that he kind of stands apart, and again, you'll see this as a motif over and over again. I'm going to have a different episode where I talk about um, personality types and the one that he might fall into, but that I won't go too far into for today. But let's just say, simply put, that sense of being different, right? That sense of being sensitive, that sense of being really in touch with his feelings. I think this kind of just took us all by surprise, even me, when I first started having exposure to him. And I kind of felt that, oh my gosh, he's talking about my internal world of feeling things in a deeper way and feeling bad that I feel them in a deep way. It felt like I remember I was listening to, or yeah, I was watching a YouTube where a father and son were listening to Man on the Moon 1, and the son kind of was talking about it, and he was like, frankly, this was kind of like a sonic hug. And I was like, goodness, like, I cannot think of a better way to describe him overall, like his whole energy, his whole vibes, majority of his music. it does sort of feel sonically like someone is giving you a hug, is really making you feel seen, understood, and just speaking very rawly to your experience, which obviously many male musicians do this. I mean, that's what music is emotional expression. But I think that there was, in hip hop, but also in other genres too, there's just sort of a lot of fronting of a particular kind of, whether it's machismo, whether it's, I'm going to get all the girls. I'm going to go party like this. I'm going to, even in Cudi's huge hits, right? The ones that went, super, super viral, right? When I'm talking about Day and Night, talking about Pursuit of Happiness. Um, those songs have this quality where they have the hooks, they have a distinct style, they have the sonic difference and the pop appeal, and all of that is there. I'm not going to say that it's not there. Like, it's very engaging to listen to. It's kind of why I latched onto it. But I think what was different is that even in these two hits, he's really talking about experiences. He's really talking about sadness and this kind of, like I was reviewing when I kind of shared the thing Wikipedia was talking about, just this real frank description of depression. This is the thing I would say about him as far as compared to other artists and masculine artists for that matter is while there can be some, like I was talking about, masculine musicians that sort of front face like, oh, I'm going to have this bravado. Oh, I'm going to be this kind of tough. Oh, I'm going to, display this kind of anger or, this kind of womanizing or whatever it may be, right? Any genre. What I think was true for him is that he just sort of gave men like me space. And he always frequently hints at in his songs, these are for the kids like me, right? And I wonder if I was going to start tearing up because sometimes when I start talking about this with other people, I start tearing up. But just that idea of kids like me, right, are more sensitive, more thoughtful, more maybe even somewhat quiet and introverted folks that don't have a particular kind of front facing masculine energy, like I was saying before, but also, can have struggles with directly um, pinpointing or describing our emotions exactly. So there's a lot of musicians and artists, and whom I'll probably talk about as well. One that randomly comes to mind is Sufjan Stevens, who through like amazing metaphors and concepts really speak to an emotion in almost a more lyrical or abstract manner. What I really appreciate about Cudi is he literally says, there's a famous song of his that I really like where he says pain, hurt, sadness, and loneliness. And then he just starts like just riffing on all of them. Like, we don't have to wonder about, how he feels about a given topic. He's going to tell you. And that just for me, again, I know I'm a huge stan. Maybe all you're hearing is, wah, 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 I'm a stan, wah, wah, wah. If that's the case, I totally get it. But I just think it really, really appealed to me. I think I was around 19 when I first had exposure to his music. A lot of friends that I had, some that were still in high school, some that were closer to my age, you know, we were really exposed to this. And those that tended to be a little more soft spoken, a little bit more on heart and sleeve, ate this shit up. We could not get enough. And then the next question here, it's kind of in similar vein, but what is his influence with men and why? So I think kind of like I was sharing before, I think it's not really global influence. I think that a lot of dudes and women for that matter as well, they might listen to his stuff and purely like the way that it sounds, right? They like the hook of Day and Night, right? They like the kind of calm, soothing, smooth, riffs and refrains from Pursuit of Happiness. More power to you, right? Like, I get it. I love those songs, even in that more shallow, or at least you just purely like it for how it sounds. But I think that, yeah, a lot of the influence had more to do with people that are just a little bit more on that thoughtful, introspective, and frankly, kind of struggling with their mental health side. So this I'll speak to a lot more once we get to the section where kind of talk about my own experiences with mental health and why this guy means so much to me. But I think it kind of spoke to a lot of men and boys that were feeling sadness and they didn't really have a space to articulate it. And the other thing that I find to be really interesting about Kid Cudi, especially when compared to others, is there may be plenty of male artists that can talk about sadness, but then also anger, right? Also, not even bravado, but they're just this intensity, right? People that immediately come to mind are like Eminem, Tupac, um, Kurt Cobain, right? Like they have a little bit of the edginess too. And I'm not saying Kid Cudi doesn't, because he definitely does have some of the edginess, but there's also a little bit more of that somber or kind of like withdrawn quality, almost calm, chill, we might say, energy that I think I more connected with that, right? Not to say, especially when I was in high school, I was very much an edgy fellow. Well, not really edgy. I thought I was. I was definitely not. Just having long hair and wearing Hot Topic post hardcore t shirts is not really that edgy and going to a Christian high school. But that's neither here nor there. I think when I was exposed to this, I was like, oh, this is what I actually connect with, right? Again, that refrain of pain, hurt, sadness, and loneliness. I really, really genuinely and powerfully feel all those emotions. And this artist that I've never met, that I probably will never meet, um, he spoke to it so directly and so plainly and was working through it. And I think that's the part that I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but we're going to talk a little bit about him working through his own struggles and pain, hurt, sadness, and loneliness. I keep repeating that, but it was really true. Um, it felt really good to be on a journey with someone else about it. I think that we as men, we tend to bottle this stuff up and not really talk about it. So at this time, I think I was in some ways such an emo kid that I did end up talking about it and probably pushed some people away. But what I really appreciated is that with him, it never really felt that way, right? It's a different kind of relationship because I'm just a listener of his music, a huge stan, don't know the guy, but it sort of felt like it was a safe space for me to really be feeling however I was feeling and know that, again, that idea of the sonic hug, that I was going to come to an artist who got it, who understood, who cared, right? Like when he would say those things like to all the kids like me, to all the kids like me, there was a sweetness to the way that he said it that just, oof, really, really got to me. Next question here. How does his masculinity interact with women in his life, kids, his fellow men? Yeah. So I would say, at least with women, um, he tends to be a little bit more introspective in his actual music itself, right? It's not to say women aren't mentioned, or that sometimes he doesn't. Thinking of the line in the song, the prayer, basically where he's saying like, I have no animosity toward anyone except if you stab me in the heart. Like, um, no love for you. And it's kind of funny because in that song, it's otherwise like a really like encouraging, uplifting, almost spiritual song. And then he's like, yeah, except for those words that stab me there. Kind of funny. But all that being said, I felt like it was really helpful because especially in the age when I first had exposure to him, I was 19. Again, unrequited love was the norm for me. I just really felt that pretty profoundly. So it was nice to hear from an artist who experienced something similar, but then didn't have some of the jaded or some of the cringe, ugh, horrible energy that you're finding in a lot of modern manosphere red pill nonsense about how, women are this way, women are that way. You need to be this kind of way. You know how women are. Just horrible, horrible stuff. I never really got that from him. It was more just a genuine open-ended question of like, is there something wrong with me? Am I just too sensitive for my own good? Is that why relationships seem to end up the way that they do? I really connected with that. And he had a child with one of his partners, and then they obviously ended up splitting. But per what he has shared and kind of like what we know, he's not really had like allegations, goodness gracious, like other artists, as of late that have been having some of these experiences of allegations and going to prison and all that stuff. He's not had that. Also, this is a new motif we're going to do for the pod. He's not in the Epstein files. Woo, woo, low bar that he's passed in that regard. Thank God. Um, but yeah, I think that he just recently got married, and his most recent CD was in some ways all about his love and care for his wife, his partner, and it was really, really sweet. and I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily his music doesn't necessarily address women directly a lot because it's really, really introspective. I think that this is something that the little glimpses that we see tend to be on the healthier side, which I really appreciate. And as for kids, again, I kind of mentioned it before, but his literal name is Kid Cudi. No, I'm just kidding. But um, he has that motif and that recurring thing in a lot of his music. This is written for all the kids like me, right? So there's this sense that, and in interviews you listen to him, but also just um, in his actual music, he knows that there's an audience of hurting people listening to him. He's a literal song called "Sad People" that I really, really like, and within these songs, he's never going to shy away from being honest about how life actually is and how painful it can be, how much suffering we could experience, darkness, all that kind of stuff. Also, there's a bit of that light, there's a bit of that kindness, there's a bit of that compassion and empathy. Sometimes I feel like artists can be a little self serving, where they may describe their own difficulties in life or whatever it may be in their songs, but it doesn't necessarily seem as if they're intentionally making music to connect with other people in the midst of their pain. And Kid Cudi literally in his songs, in the first couple bars, I know I'm a huge stan, in some of those bars literally says, "This is for the kids like me. This is for the people that struggle like me, that are in pain like me, that are in the dark like me." I'm literally thinking of Mr. Rager. That's literally how that song opens up. One of the most famous songs on the vinyl that's up there, right there. Yeah. And then as far as his fellow men, I mean, he tends to be on good standing with many, many folks. Him and Kanye kind of go back and forth, but there's one person that's kind of causing them to go back and forth, and it's not Kid Cudi. Um, and yeah, I mean, he just collaborates with a lot of different guys. It's not to say that he's done things perfectly, especially when I think, and I didn't mention this too much, but right after this CD was produced, he had a really difficult time for a while with cocaine and other drugs, and it was really, really rough, right? And so, in that regard, I wouldn't say that's healthy masculinity. And in the same vein, while people are going to consume marijuana in the whatever way they want to, and I personally have kind of chosen to be like, I probably can't, knowing my own personality, knowing my own temperament. He very much promotes it. He very much like has it front and center. But at the same time, I don't feel like he has songs that are like, yeah, 420, yeah, but there is incidentally one song that's kind of in this way, but it's a little bit more tongue in cheek. So that was the only thing I would say is like slightly unhealthy. But again, at least when it comes to cocaine or drugs that we can pretty much all agree are for the most part anyway, agree are unhealthy or you have to be careful about. He has kind of like since turned and kind of like found healing for why he was taking those drugs in particular. So yeah, and then I've been hinting at it a lot. I won't go on and on. I'm a huge stan. I've stated multiple times that I'm a huge stan, and you've heard my standing this whole time. So I won't get too far into it. But how his work has affected me. So um, again, coming out of high school, feeling really, really different, uber sensitive, hard on sleeve, a lot of angst. I mean, in some ways you could say, oh, that's, what the teens are for. That's the age for it. But I think there's a whole demographic specifically of men and boys that have a little bit more of this bent, right? Whether it's personality type, whether it's inclination, whatever we want to call it. You just feel not like the norm for what either men should be, or at least you don't have the trappings of a conventionally, either healthy or desirable man, for lack of a better way to describe it. And I think that he really gave me a road in of someone who was talking about not having that and how hard it was for him. And I was like, whoa, dude, that's me. Like, that is exactly me. Holy shit, that is me. So I think I really, really connected to it for that reason. Um, Another thing that's really, really beautiful about his story. So I don't know the exact year. Guess I'm losing a little of my stan cred. It was like 2017, 2018, I want to say. He just came out with a CD that was largely panned. Frankly, I don't really like that CD very much. I can't think of its title right off the top of my head, but it's him in like in a field and he's like lying, kind of like pumping his fists like this. But anyway, yeah, he was having a really, really difficult time. And there was actually, he was going to make that album. And the final bit of it was going to be a gun sound going off. And then reports were going to come out that, like, oh my gosh, Kid Cudi had decided to, take his own life and things like that. So, but that didn't happen. It's really wonderful. It did not happen. He sent out a thing was over Facebook and Twitter, and I'm sure all the things. But basically, just this long, lengthy social media post. I'm not doing well, everybody. I'm struggling. I'm having a hard time. I'm very addicted. I'm very sad and depressed, and I don't want to be here. I'm going into rehab. I'm going to work on myself. Oof. And I need to figure out what's going on with me. Um, the response from the fans. I think because of everything that I had been sharing up to this point about the way he would describe, I'm making this songs for kids like me, right? That are struggling with depression, that are struggling with feeling not wanted, that are struggling with um, sensitivity and not knowing what to do with it. Fans overwhelmingly messaged and replied to him and said, Cuddy, we love you, man. Like, you have meant everything to us. You've given us sonic hugs for years. We feel like we know you. Like, take care of yourself, get what you need. You've given so much to us. Now you can give, for yourself. So they did that. And then next thing that is released by him is Kid Cudi. Very awesome CD with him and Kanye. The love song by me, Reborn. He just keeps repeating, I'm so reborn. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Yeah. I just think that he kind of helped me map out how I was going to work on my own mental health and how I was going to make sense of some of this sadness, some of the pain from rough relationships that I had had, low sense of self esteem that I was carrying. Seeing that social media post, seeing him getting help. He wasn't the only reason that I went to therapy and did all those sorts of things. Of course not. But it was really, really big to have someone like this do that. And I felt very encouraging when I was already doing that. And then I saw him also doing that. Really, really awesome. And then, yeah. And then it's just really, really cool because in addition to that CD, sort of all the music that he's produced has not necessarily been as commercially or in some ways critically as successful as that early stuff is. It's now pretty positive. It's now pretty hopeful, pretty uplifting. He's kind of doing a retrospective. Man, that old Kid Cudi, oh man, Scott, like you were going through it. I see you. I've grown. I've healed. I'm going to take care of you now. And again, I really, really feel that. So, yeah, I know a lot of this is just me gushing about my favorite musician, but yeah, I just really, really connected with his music. Really love everything that he stands for regarding masculinity, that you could be a different kind of guy. You can be emotional. You can be sensitive. You can be introspective. You can also just speak very directly to feelings, which I really appreciate about him so much. And yeah, just be an inspiration to others. That I was just watching documentary from him, and it was just talking about the biggest thing he wants to do for other people is inspire them. So inspired this guy, and I know he's inspired a lot of his other fans. So yeah, that's all that we've got for today's episode. Um, finishing writing solo dolo again, cheesy reference, but for those Cudi stands, they'll know what I'm talking about. But yes, we will be reviewing Sir Duncan from Night of the Seven, or rather Nine Kingdoms, here in a little bit. So look for that. And then also Ryan Coogler will be dropping right in time for the Grammys. We want you guys to find our content. And our discussion on Ryan Coogler is awesome. Yeah, fam. Appreciate you taking time to listen. And I hope just another plug. If you are struggling, if you're having a hard time, if you're in the midst of a difficult season, on the one hand, you will find a lot of help with this guy listening to his music. He's going to connect to what you're going through. On the other hand, take his example, reach out for help. Help is available. People want to love on you, people want to care for you. And so please reach out and get support if you need it. I'm endorsing that as one of the hosts here, and I know I can represent all the other men on here that feel the same. But yeah, we'll see you guys in a bit. Y'all have a good one. Hey y'all, Caleb here. Thank you for listening to our show today. Please like and subscribe wherever the heck you listen to pods, and make sure to follow us on all the socials at Influ-Men-Sirs. That is INFLU-men-sirs. We'll see you next time. Peace.